Kirsten, welcome to Boss Talks. Thank you for being here with us today.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so to get started, would you give us a little bit of an introduction to yourself, who you are and what you do?
Well, my name is Kirsten Daniel. Most of my clients call me KD. I am from Atlanta. I am a producer manager, talent manager, artist manager, and I'm sorry, I mute my computer. And I also do some marketing consulting, which has definitely come in handy when working with artists. So that's a little bit of my background.
Wow, so a Renaissance woman. Sounds like you do it all.
Gotta be multifaceted these days.
Yeah. How did you get into all these sectors, managing, producer managing, and marketing?
Well, it kind of just goes back to my experience in music. I started off working with Grand Hustle many moons ago, and it was a boutique label. Being in Atlanta, you always kind of learn how to do every single part of the job. You know, there are only a couple people there, and at the time, T.I. was at the top of his charts, as well as the other artists that were on the roster. So I had to learn how to juggle a lot of different hats and, wear a lot of different, have a lot of different roles. So when it came time to, over time, there's so many stories that take place between then and now. But once my friend had a need, he was working with the artist. He's like, yo, I need your help. I'm like, all right, cool. I never set out to be a talent manager, but it just kind of fell in my lap. So I started to help, and I'm like, okay, I see what this is. I see how this works. So it was very easy for me to navigate, into that role from all of the things that I had experienced, in my coming up in the industry.
Yeah, so you're from like the hub of hip hop right now, Atlanta. How has being from Atlanta influenced your career path?
Oh my gosh, it's crazy. It's crazy you say that, because sometimes it feels like we are, overlooked in the market, just because if you want a label job, you have to move to New York or LA, or if you want to do big business, if your client wants to get signed, or if you need some money, nobody's going to break the bank down here. There are a lot of boutique labels and they're all doing well, but most of them are partnered with a larger label. So Atlanta really teaches you how to hustle, how to grind, how to, wear, again, all of these hats, because you have no choice. We don't have the backing and the support and the ability to have so many departments like other markets do. So being from here, of course, you see artists, everybody, you should almost think of everybody as being an artist, because that's just how common it is down here. But you see these smaller artists like a Little Baby from day one, and you never even pay attention to how enormous this person could get, because we're here. It's common, that you have 1,000 little small artists and they grow to be something great. And I think that's really dope, because we really don't take for granted the talent that we have here. You treat everybody like they could potentially be a star. And again, there's so many people to work with to just kind of sharpen your iron and get a feel for what it means to really nurture like a large artist and, take them to stardom.
Wow. I love that culture of never overlooking the artists in your city. That's huge. Probably explains a lot of the hits out of Atlanta.
You can't, because you'll overlook somebody if you judge, or if you think that this person may not be talented, because it just depends on the amount of hustle that they have and the grind and the will to do, whether they make it or not, because so many people here are talented. And that's the super cool thing about being here. Everybody has their own grind.
Oh, I love that. Sounds like a great city to be in the music industry for sure. So what does a typical day as a manager and a producer manager look like for you? And what are kind of some of the differences between the two?
Well, pre-quarantine, excuse me, it was cool, because we, you come here, we're based here. It's all studio time. They all want to be in the studio 100% of the time. That's it. But once you have the project or whatever it is, a lot of times we set up meetings in New York or LA. So it was a lot of traveling, because we have to make sure that, the artist or the producer is visible, that we're making the connections that need to be made. The artists and the producers travel a lot too. Actually, they're still traveling, because they have to make sure that they're spreading around, who they're working with, the type of collaborations that they're doing. So it was a lot of travel prior to COVID-19. But right now, it's looking like just a whole lot of phone calls, a whole lot of emails to just make sure everything is intact. On the artist side, of course, there is identifying if there's a project that's coming out soon. If there's a project that's coming out, and just building up the pieces to make sure that whatever's happening between then and now, between conceptualizing the project and it actually coming out, that those things are being worked on. So I'm checking in with clients a lot to see, are you recording? Where are you with things? What have you done? Have you done any content? Why haven't you posted on Instagram? Don't post that on Instagram. All of that. On the producer side, it's making those connections to get those placements, so it's a lot of communication with A&Rs on a daily basis. It's a lot of, connecting with other producers just to make sure that the production is coming from the hard drive to actually, getting played in different offices and people's, people get a chance to hear it.
Yeah. Do the producers that you work with do a lot of collaborations? Like a lot of beat collabs?
Not a whole lot. Not a whole lot. I know there are some producers that do a lot of collaborations. The ones that I work with, they don't do a whole lot of them. But we may start.
Nice. I love that. So what do you see has been your proudest accomplishment so far?
I'm gonna keep it real simple. The proudest accomplishment is the ability to be, I guess, an entrepreneur in the music space, to make a living off of helping other people become an artist and just, doing my own thing and leading people to success. So that is the accomplishment, to live comfortably, be on what other people may deem comfortable, doing what I love to do. So I can't list one particular thing. Of course, it's a joy seeing your artists go on tour. It's a joy seeing their faces when you're in the car and a song is played, that's theirs. But for me, it's just the ability to help other people to see that smile on their face and to see the joy that they have once they've reached their goals. And for me to be able to make a living doing that, I think that is what I would say I'm most proud of.
That's definitely something to be proud of. That's huge. But when you're looking for producers to manage, what are some things you look at to know that a producer is going to fit well with you, that you two are going to have a good relationship?
I kind of look and see just like what their temperament is. And it takes a few conversations. I'm not the person that's going to just say, hey, I want to manage you, let's work. I kind of like to have a lot of conversations to gauge, is this a person that needs me, or needs management? Because a lot of people don't particularly need management yet. Is this a person that is working and doing everything that they need to do on their own prior to, getting a management to come into place? So I like to make sure that the personality types are going to match. Because quite honestly, I don't prefer people that are like super, super needy. I think we can all independently work. You do your thing and pass it over to me, and I do my thing. And I like to make sure that trust is there so that we can just go forth and work. And, that I'm going to be doing everything in my power to make sure that the plays are being made and vice versa, So it's really the personality and the work ethic for me.
Nice. That's great. So what are some of the challenges that you've faced as a female artist manager?
Oh, gosh. The biggest challenges, I would say, I'm representing all males. So that means that, I'm talking usually to a room full of men. And as a woman that's representing a man, what I find is that men typically prefer to do business with men, or at least that's how it used to be. So sometimes it could be hard, not being overlooked when you walk in the room and they're thinking that you're the assistant, and also not being emotional in how those situations are checked. I try not to take everything in offense. I just try to make sure that I introduce myself, correct the situation, still communicate amicably, and making sure that, we're on the same page and there's no bad energy and we can get whatever we need to get done. But I think that's the biggest part, honestly, just making sure that I know that it's not personal if I see men that don't necessarily see me the way that my clients or I see myself.
Right.
You know, because there are people you have to expect that men are used, you know, certain men are used to doing business with other men, and they may not be used to seeing a woman in power, or they may not like to work with a woman in power. But I don't let that faze me. So I think that that's been the biggest thing. Just don't be fazed by it. Keep moving and know the goals, know your goals, and don't let anybody talk to you crazy.
Don't let anybody talk to you crazy.
Don't let anybody talk to you crazy.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Do you feel like you've had to move in different ways because you're a woman manager?
Definitely. I am a manager that doesn't spend a whole lot of time in the studio. And again, honestly, I'm older than most people think that I am. So I don't like for people to view me as a peer when I'm in the studio. So I make sure that if I'm there with a purpose. Either I'm listening to something, I'm like, okay, cool, this is great, let's go, or I'm checking in on the session. But I do make sure that I'm not seen in a lot of the settings that my clients are at. You know, I try to keep a balance in terms of how they view me, because I also am a person to like to maintain boundaries in relationships, and not every piece of my time belongs to my clients or belongs to the people that I work with. So I just try to maintain very clear boundaries in terms of where you see me, how you see me, and how I'm presenting myself and how I'm communicating in any of those settings. I'm probably not going to drink a whole lot. Definitely, you know, not going to smoke or anything like that. So I just try to, you know, and that's just me. That's no knock to anybody else and how they do business, but it just works more for me.
Right. And it's all about that, right? Learning your own lane and your own groove. That works for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, what is one piece of advice that you would like to give young women who want to become artists or producer managers?
One piece of advice I would give is exactly what I said. Keep your boundaries. You know, if you're a manager, that means that more than likely you're running the ship. So it's up to other people. You treat people how you want them to treat you. You teach people how you want them to treat you. And I think that, you know, when there are boundaries set in place, when you make sure that nobody's overstepping those boundaries, is when the relationship can move forth with respect. But just identify what those boundaries are in the beginning. There's not a person that I work with, and even if they do, they're not going to call me at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning, just because those are the boundaries that I set. Other people are different. That's just my preference. If they do, they know, like, I just called you so that you know I called. You know, I knew you're going to call me back in the morning. But that's what, you know, I came up in the grind culture. I started in the business in 2008, where it wasn't traditional for you to take pictures of what you were doing, for you to be seen standing next to the artist that you were working with, for you to even communicate about any of the things that you had seen and heard, you know. And I'm sure before that, it was probably even worse. So for me, I just want to kind of make sure that I'm not giving 100% of my time or my energy, or having to be responsive to how people treat me, you know, and also just opening myself up to not having a life of my own. So I learned that in the very beginning, you know, I started that in the very beginning, but moving forward, I see that that was unhealthy, to just like be open to everything, always, you know, being at everybody's beck and call. I realized that that probably wasn't the best way for me to navigate. So my advice is to make sure that the boundaries are identified. If you don't want people calling you, you know, demanding things all times of day and night, make sure you start off by not answering the phone and telling them, like, yo, I stopped working around this time. You got to text me after this particular time, you know. And I think that's more so for people to have a peace of mind. The entertainment industry can be a burnout industry, and you don't want to get in over your head before you even make $1, because it will happen. People will use you if you allow them to do that. So just identify those boundaries. Make sure those relationships are clear cut, that people know what they can say to you and what they can't. Check people when they're wrong, and you'll be good.
Right. And how have you found that checking people has been compared to when you first started out and now? Has that been difficult for you, or was that something that kind of came easily?
No, it came with time. You know, because I started as an intern, I kind of always had that intern mentality that, like, oh, let me not say anything, you know, I don't want to rock the boat. But over the years, as I continued to build experience and be around so many different people, it was easier once I had certain credentials and once I had gone through certain experiences to say, like, no, this is not going to be the way that we interact or communicate, you know? So once you put your foot down once, you won't have to do it again. It may not come easy, but it has to happen in order for there to be mutual respect.
Right. Well, that's very important advice. Thank you, Kirsten. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
This was really cool.